So today's episode features a conversation with Becky Allender. And I don't even want to start by saying she's Dan's wife, which she is, but she is in her own right a woman with a really powerful presence.
She's a gifted caregiver. We've been privileged to receive care from her in a small group context. I love how she provides this foil to Dan, this additional commentary on the stories that he tells and tells so well. But really, what I'm so captured by was just her humility. And this is somebody who's wrestled with Jesus for a long, long time and is letting him meet her where she is and change her. You'll hear about kind of what that change has been, what it's required, what it's cost, what it's looked like. But the joy that's fruited out of it is one of the things that's kind of most compelling. When you say,
Absolutely. And Becky is a woman who is clearly committed to growing until she leaves this earth.
and that's I think what's been, and you'll hear us talk about in the podcast a little bit. Why hearing her stories and Dan's are so inspiring. Partly it's because they're never done. They're never only talking about 10 years ago and 20 years ago. They have some powerful stories from then, but they're still in process. They're still learning about each other, and with a delight and a playfulness that is inspiring. They're learning about the breadth of God's mercy, the depth of God's mercy, and just how to show up and be an agent of that in the world. And it's super encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah. So in the conversation, we talk some about marriage, some about what it means to find your voice, what it means to parent, and then let adult children find their voices with us. So we look forward to you tuning in.
Hope it'll be an encouragement to everybody. God bless.
We are delighted to be here today with Becky Allender of Bainbridge Island, Washington, the wife of Dan Allender. So welcome, Becky.
It's so great to be here, Wendy and Chris. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad to see your face and be with you. So, you are Dan's wife, but you are way more than Dan's wife. You are an author in your own right. So, your book, Hidden in Plain Sight, came out a number of years ago. What do you remember what year it came out?
It was November 2017.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. It was right after I started going out to Seattle. I went out that August for
Oh
a
my
story
goodness.
workshop. We recently had Rachel Clinton Shen on, and
Mm.
I was talking about that story workshop. And my experience there is the reason that I do what I do today. So
Oh my goodness.
I remember picking your book up really quickly, but I wouldn't have known it was potentially within a few months.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're an author in your own right. You've also joined Dan in a recent book, The Deep Rooted Marriage.
Yes. Yes.
And tell us a little bit. Well, you can tell us anything you'd like to about yourself. I'd love the people to get to know you. But tell us a little bit about the trauma informed couples training that you are hoping this book sort of puts a frame around.
Well, I think because I'm not a therapist and didn't get that degree, because I'm married to Dan and he loves teaching and training, and trauma has been a big part of where God has led him in his life's work, that I was able to come alongside him and be a part of these marriage intensives as well as some conferences and retreats.
Yes.
So, yeah,
And
so
that's where I've mainly encountered you as well when I think we came to Nashville right before pandemic and coming out to Bellingham for the calls, the
oh
Reconnecting Institute
yes.
workshops
Yes.
and gotten to sit with you and get care really and just to get to know you, which has been phenomenal. But so continue. What's that
Thanks, Chris.
been
Well,
like?
first of
Your role has grown so much, it feels like.
well, it has. I used to be facilitating for the narrative focused trauma care. And Chris, you were always a person on the screen I liked looking at because
Oh,
you just had that kind face. And so it's been so great that we've gotten to know both of you, over the years. Because for a
thank you.
while, it's just all on the little screen. So it's been
Right.
a joy. So, yeah, I have been sort of thrust into this work with my husband, I've loved it. It's been really a privilege to work intensely with 4 couples over 2.5 days. I think there's 5 group times, and very validated to be sitting next to Dan, but also he's in a at a recovery week right now. In 1988, I went through the first recovery week.
I don't
Um,
think I knew that you literally
yes,
were you here,
I
honey,
was
be the
in
guinea pig.
I was in the very first. Andrew was a nursing baby, so I didn't spend the night with the women, but
Oh, wow.
he was nearby. And someone just asked Dan today at the recovery week, well, how did that work out with Becky in your group? First, they're like, she wasn't in your group, was she? Well, yeah, he was the only group leader.
Oh
And
my goodness.
it didn't work out very well at all. It was total reenactment. And I just
Oh my gosh.
so angry at him. And I'm like, I'm never going to be in a group with you again, which actually kind of was true
Right.
until these intensives. And now it's a whole new situation, of course, where I
Sure.
can see where he has been in the depths of people's sorrow for a long time and hears God and can connect the dots really well. So at times I sit in awe, just amazed that I get to be a part of this, but I also have a voice in it as well.
Yes.
Well, I'd say, yeah, it's a rich voice. It's an impactful voice. If nothing else, just because it's great for Dan to have a foil, to have somebody who's like, I was there also.
That's
And
right.
here's
Some
what it felt
validity.
like. Good. Here's what it felt like for other people. And we are that benefit to each other. I think we've been married, 32 years, but we are still amazed at how we can perceive the same situation very differently.
Mhm.
From our
Yes.
own stories, from our own lenses, we'll surprise each other every now and then, even though we've done a lot of work, we know about each other's stories. We'll still be like, how did you not see this or see that? And so having that other perspective, it can be maddening and exasperating, but it's also a good, helpful thing also, particularly when you're counting, challenges. If it's not between us, we're really, really good at helping. Hey, there's more
Yes.
to it than this. The harder part
Yes.
is when it's about what we experienced. And
Mhm.
so,
Yeah. Yeah, that curiosity, when we were newlyweds, we didn't have any curiosity. We just had our own hearts that were being run over, so
yeah,
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
wonderful to have these other tools in a different way.
You come to mind often, Becky, when we are having conflict because there've been a few stories. I'm assuming Dan is the one who said them when I took them in, but I remember one story where I think somebody had called the house. I feel like this is an old, old, old story.
Uh-huh.
Might have been a client, but Dan didn't want you to say he was home.
Yes.
And I might be mixing 2 stories. But in any event, you were like, "Yes, and he's right here." And Dan was clearly very angry. Well, you went into his office and started reading one of his books, and he came in and he was mad, and you said, "Oh, I'm just here reading what you say to do in situations like this."
Yeah, I remember that very well before there was caller ID.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that goes back way back. We were married in 77, so 48 years. Yeah, I don't, I must have just gotten so angry at that time. I needed anger and sometimes still now before I can actually say what I want to say.
Uh-huh.
Unless I
fair.
get
Yeah.
angry, I can't use my voice in a way that's what I really want to say. So I think we were both fired up at that point.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Sure.
But I did have the book Bold Love, and I more or less put that as hello, I'm doing this book I think tells me what to do.
Nice.
But
Well
yeah,
played.
I totally did not do what he wanted me to do by setting the phone down and saying that he was nearby.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, you said something interesting I'd like to hear more about just then. You said, "Unless I was angry, I couldn't really access my voice." So, I think, we all have stories around our voices and how easy or difficult it has been to use them on behalf of self and others. So, what's been like your journey with using your own voice?
Mm. Well, I would say it's been a slow one, but I'm very grateful to be where I'm
Uh-huh.
at now. I know there was a couple years ago, I had a situation that I called someone and I was upset. And this person said, "Gosh, it sounds like you've got complex anger, complex trauma." And I didn't know what this person meant, but hung up. And then about 6 months later, called this person again. And she's like, "Hmm, I think you have some complex trauma." So, when you hear a word or a phrase and you never heard it before, and then all of a sudden it's everywhere, it's every book,
Yes.
it's every podcast. So, I actually started Zooming with a graduate of the Seattle School. And it's been so good for me to have time to talk with her. And her validation was, in one story, I'll get to your point. I was in first grade, and my mom said, "I can't pick you up on time today at ballet. Just, just go to the lobby and wait there."
Mm.
Well, I had been called often that I was stupid and that I was dumb and that, I really never wanted to bother my mother. And so I quit asking for help in a lot of
Uh-huh.
ways at a young age. But I couldn't ask an adult where the lobby was because then they would know I was stupid.
Oh,
I didn't want anyone to know I was stupid. So I just started wandering. And so this therapist I have now is like, "Becky, do you see how early in your life you were set up
Mm.
to not ask, to not have a voice?"
uh,
And then so it played out and it still plays out through my life now. I have a lot more agency now to use my voice. I have a lot more awareness of that tenderness, and instead of shredding myself with
Mm.
fury, I can say, "Oh, okay. I'm allowed to say this right now." It's
mm.
it's not like I really have to get angry in order to say it, but it also has been a journey to use my voice and then not feel stupid, sort
Yes.
of.
Wow. Well, and especially so, has it made it difficult? I mean, you're married to a person who makes their living by bringing words to the world in
Yeah.
written form
Mhm.
and in vocal form, and obviously brilliant. I love his academic journey. Dan's academic journey cracks me up. It's such a lovely story, the whole thing.
Well, I
But
was funding it, but
well,
thank you
that's right,
very
that's
much.
right. But
Like it wasn't always funny,
right.
right?
But what I'm saying is that he is obviously brilliant. He was not the best student in high school. He had other activities, obviously, that he was devoting his creativity and entrepreneurial energy to. But he is clearly brilliant and has this voice. And so this picture of you alongside him, and yet there's some kind of spark or spunk in you still that is, you didn't just kind of become sort of never mind, I'm in the shadows. I know that was hard fought.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Well, and I think, again, back to this therapist, she said, "Well, Becky, you had to marry someone like that." See, my parents were
uh,
very vocal, both of them very big talkers. And
okay.
so, it was I was used to that role, listening or laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so but yet then, living on the planet Earth, you actually do want to show up and
Right.
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 use a voice. So
Uh-huh.
it seemed like our sin in some ways fit together so beautifully, especially in the realm of the church,
Yeah.
because I could serve and provide a beautiful table or home for people to come, and Dan could ask the most amazing, caring questions. And it was
Okay.
it was fabulous until it wasn't.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's the title of my book, Hidden in Plain Sight. I had
Yes.
to come to grips with my own quietness
Yes.
and break out of that.
What?
So I'm curious. What can I ask you a
Yeah.
question first, Wendy? Like when he was showing her copy earlier, if anybody's watching this video, they'll see, and it's got like paper. It's got like yellow stickies like throughout it and
Aw.
dog-eared pages. And this is actually like when you have a joke, she likes to read parts of books most of the time. Like she reads, get the gist, but this one, there's no part untouched.
Yes.
What
Wow.
do you remember being connectional or momentous about this or meaningful about this when, and especially now that you contextualize it to more like 2017, 18?
I mean, I think the main thing that I took away was this idea of it was really easy to stay hidden by Dan's bigness. And in
Yes.
some ways that worked for you until it began to dissolve you.
But how did it
You
resonate
didn't
with
want to
you?
be. I think
Oh,
the
yeah.
same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a common story situation.
Yeah.
What, married to a long-haired, somewhat loud-mouthed,
Right.
know-it-all,
Lawyer. Yes.
recovering know-it-all, perhaps?
Yes. Yes.
Well, and, as a child, only daughter in the family, and a lot of confidence among my father and my older brother,
Mm.
and a lot of, I needed to be quiet and to the line. I'll just say it that. I needed to be a good girl and I needed to not make waves. And so I smiled a lot. And like you said, laughed. I laughed a lot. And then married my best friend
Mm.
at 22, and we had met at 13. We're
Wow.
friends for most of that time. And I don't think I realized, well, I certainly didn't realize I had a war with my voice
No.
and did not realize that we would have a war letting both of our voices share the stage.
And I didn't realize how I basically, my story is fortified by mother in a high conflict marriage relationship. I don't know how much of that you remember, but I found my place to hide in plain sight, on
Mm.
stages, behind
Yes.
podiums,
Wow.
speaking, singing, telling jokes, whatever. So I didn't lack for words, but I've come to realize in the later, more recent parts of my healing journey, I was deprived of a voice in a meaningful way. It just didn't look the same. I didn't go silent. I just went chattery and, blah, 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 I can talk around everything. And I'm constantly dancing away from things with my voice. So it's not, I'm not speaking, but am I speaking what's in my heart?
Hmm.
Being authentic? Am I using my words? In fact, I'll share an NFTC level 1 moment that was powerful for me that you mentioned. Very first time doing an FTC, when you had done it before, I knew somewhat of what to expect, but I didn't know how it would impact me. But I knew this, I think this will be helpful. This will be meaningful for me. But one person told me after kind of we had some dynamics and how we show up in the group, and this guy said, "Chris, I wanted to say to you, you have these words, and to me, they're kind of like a cloak, and a cloak can be really great. It can be used to give shelter. It can be used to hide when you need to. It can be used, to bring warmth, but it
Mm.
also can be a place to kind of hide. And so can you think, and I've thought about that ever since of, am I hiding? Am I cloaking with words?
Mm.
Is there more power? And that's where I began to learn and especially as somebody, a lawyer paid to talk, my gosh, there's no
Yes.
class in law school about silence and how helpful that would be sometimes. But
That's
it's
right.
actually really useful, really helpful. In my counseling training, they emphasize that. So all that is to say, I didn't have a voice, but it looked different. It was
Yes.
loud, but it's still, there was is that making sense when
Yeah. And yours
Mm.
also came with a lot of confidence. Like,
projected confidence? Yes.
yeah, like Chris was valedictorian, full scholarship
Whoa.
to Chapel Hill, full scholarship to University of Virginia Law School. Like there was a lot of
Congratulations.
confidence. Yeah, it's brilliant.
I didn't
A
know
lot of
that.
confidence behind the words.
Mm.
And I did not have that confidence. So it's very easy for me to reenact and presume that I relatively speaking was not very smart or wise. Like I should bow down to what he was saying.
And when I
You
have
weren't telling me that,
right.
but there was a difference in the way we perceived our own
Yes.
value.
So like when we first started having conflict, and again, it threw us for a loop because we've been best friends and we were best friends.
Yes.
We didn't fight.
Yeah.
Like the first time we even had, after we started dating, we had discomfort. We're like, I feel weird. What is this? We didn't have any way to relate to it, but we kind of just sort of shut it down. But conflict in our marriage showed up early on and we were unprepared. unwarned anything. But for me, I ramp up. Oh my gosh, somebody's going to leave. Somebody's upset. But I get more verbal. So
Yes.
very early days,
Mhm.
you shut down.
Right.
You didn't know what you thought or felt for about
Right.
3 days sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
which
Yeah.
is madness for me because I'm like, I've been in that environment where somebody's just judging and hates me and I don't know why. And I'll ramp up, I'll get bigger and
Uh-huh.
smarter and more better performing. And this will work. And eventually, because that's how I had that dynamic with my mom, eventually I would do something really praiseworthy. Oh, you're the best. And she would go into, a good mode,
Yes.
which I couldn't even name I knew I didn't know I had any mom issues at that time.
Hmm.
I knew I had dad issues galore. But
Wow.
in the early framing of my story, mom was the hero, dad was the bad guy. And
Okay.
boy, is it more complex than that, it turns out.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm being verbal now, so it's
No,
fine.
I'm
I
really
didn't say
glad.
something.
No, I mean, I thank you because that really gives me a great idea of that dynamic. Yeah.
Well, and the mix that it was for us, number one, not expecting conflict. We worked at the same church at the time we were, the year before we got married, while we were engaged. Is that right? Yeah.
That was before we started dating.
Oh no, that's right. We
Same
worked at the same
church.
church before.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
But our because we had worked at the same church, our premarital counseling was like, "Y'all are so cute. Y'all are the church. Y'all are the church interns." What?
And we were in youth group
Yeah,
there.
we're in youth group together.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is
Oh,
great."
it
So
is great.
no preparation for. Do you have
Lots of issues that will come out.
yes?
No,
And in my
no,
case,
you guys were perfect.
right.
Exactly.
Actually, that's a funny story too. One of my best friends at the time sang in our wedding, and he sang this song. It was a song called "To Trusting Jesus." And he actually, while he was singing, he messed up the lyrics. He actually sang, it was supposed to be two separate pathways leading to glory. He actually sang, "Two perfect people leading to glory," or something like that.
Oh gosh,
I'm the
that's a
only
lot of
one.
pressure.
It was hilarious.
I didn't even hear it.
I'm the
Yeah.
only one in the whole church who knows what the actual lyrics are. And so start dying laughing. But in a way, although we would not said we were perfect people, we kind of would have thought we're gonna be pretty good at this marriage thing. I mean,
Yeah,
we really
yeah.
did think that.
One thing on a transition is just a little bit. So, you get married, and Dan's pretty clear about this in his books, but you learn to be married by being married. Right. Like it's like you learn who you are and how good or terrible of a lover of other people you are as you're in this most intimate relationship. And
Yes.
then you learn to parent as you parent. And so I have said so many times, like, why doesn't God give us like fake children? Like, we're in the age of AI, so maybe now people will get the benefit. But right, like you parent, and how children raise their parents, I still recommend it frequently because its message is that in the process of parenting, you will learn how badly you need to be parented,
Mhm.
ultimately by God, but where the holes are. And
Yes.
so I'm thinking, you're, a few years into marriage, most of us, you begin to have children. So you're both learning to be married and learning to be parents at the same time. And you, like we, now have adult children who thankfully I think are mainly honest enough to say, guess what? For good
Right.
and for hard. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm just curious, like, what's your take on how in the world do we learn to do both at the same time, Becky? Like, it's a hard road there for a few years, isn't it? Or
It's
longer.
it's really hard. Oh my goodness. It's ludicrous that
Yes.
there's not more training out there that everyone has to go through. I've learned so much from my daughter-in-law who's a Montessori instructor. Oh my
Uh-huh.
goodness. So, but yeah, back when you're just married and you're just kind of bringing your own stuff to how you were raised to try and raise, it's nuts, yeah, but thankfully, we do have children who are adults
Yeah.
yeah, they can bring their disappointments.
Yes.
I did write that one chapter, I think, in the book about Amanda was going to be moving to New York. And so that was just our 3 children without their spouses.
Uh-huh.
And it turned out to be a food fight, as it just was like telling us so many things that we did wrong. I took it way, way to heart rather than being wise, like on
Mm.
defensive. I'm going to use this again. My therapist said, Becky, he knew what he was doing. He left you there alone to, hear all this stuff. Now that's been almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so recently over Mother's Day, our older daughter just had some pretty severe things to bring to me. This time around, I could say, tell me more.
Ugh.
And oh, you're right. And gosh, oh, that's awful. I don't remember, but oh, tell me. I want to,
Yeah.
please
Tell me
take,
what your experience was.
yeah, yes. And to not be defensive and just say, I'm so thankful that
Yes.
you have brought this up, because we will be hashing this over,
Yeah.
maybe for a lifetime,
Yeah.
maybe not. But to have that openness that only by the grace of God,
Yeah.
only for the forgiveness that we have through our Savior is, I mean, it's forgiveness all the
Yep.
way to heaven, really.
Yep.
And so I'm so thankful for the growth I've had for
Yeah.
someone listening to my story to be able to receive her words very differently.
Well, that's a real gift. I'm just gonna say that.
Yes.
I have I did Recovery Week a couple of years ago. I've done a couple other intensive type things, and I've seen the dynamic play out frequently. And by the time I was doing more of my deeper healing, but my parents had passed away, so I didn't
Mhm.
have this temptation or this driver to worry about. But I've seen many, it's men in particular, who have these revelations and are realizing this was worse than I thought, or I am harmed by this, or this helps explain why I am now. And they want to, there's a strong urge to go and talk it out with the people who harmed them or the people who neglected or who let harm happen. And Dan always
Yeah.
gives a great caution of slow that roll. Don't go, you want that instinct is so good and you have this vision of, but I've seen several people who did not heed that advice and went and try and they just got re-traumatized often because they
Yes.
got defensiveness, because they got, you're remembering it wrong, who's influencing you, all kinds of, horrible type things. And it's doubly crushing versus, the gift that you gave and what we hope we're doing. And I guess hearing you say it is encouraging, like, your child's in their 30s, 40s. And so it's not like this is their first opportunity.
45.
45. So
Yes.
that helps me, it could happen in the future for us. And we want to have that spirit.
Well, I think it has.
It has
Yeah.
some, yes, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I'm just like,
Yeah.
no, it may not be done,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and trying to be
Yeah.
okay with that,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I wanted to say is just what a gift, and you're a model, something that
Yes.
we want to remember. How can we
Yeah.
be receptive, especially when we have argued and defended on other things, lots of things.
Yes.
Right.
But so, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like as Christians, we set out to raise these little people into largely Christians. And that's a good thing. Okay. And I think that sometimes we get a little misguided and it becomes all about the morality of particular things. Not that I
Yes.
want to be permissive, right? And just let the kids raise themselves and do what they want. But I have found that a lot of times I'm asking myself the question, what did it mean then? And what does it mean now to
Mm.
be a good mother? A good mother who loves Jesus and wants to represent Jesus to her children with the hope that they will receive the invitation that he has.
Yes.
And that's a really hard question, because it doesn't mean always that what comes out the other end is a person that's going to stand up in front of the church and give a testimony that everyone applauds,
That's right.
And so I think I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Like, what does it even mean to be a good mother, a God honoring, Jesus loving mother or father?
You're saying at this stage?
Well,
Or
then
all
and
of them?
now.
Okay.
Then and
Yeah.
now.
Well, that's a really good question. And wow, if we knew now what we didn't know then, we
Yeah.
probably would have been a lot of things.
Yeah.
Less worried about a reputation within the church or,
Mhm.
you know, all the things that Dan and I came out of the 60s and found Jesus in, the Jesus movement in the
Mhm.
70s. So we're all mixed up if we look at the circle that we went. And so, yeah, I just hope it will bring more grace. I just hope to have more compassion for the woman who I was, thinking that I was
Yes.
doing things right, as well
Yes.
as more compassion to my children who were
Yes.
receiving the
Yes.
instruction that I gave them that probably was a little off kilter and
Yeah.
sometimes completely off kilter.
Yes.
And I think God is big enough, like, I don't have to worry about I mean, he's that big. I
Yes.
think they're great adults in
Yes.
every way, and they're
Yes.
choosing to raise their families very differently, and I
Yes.
bless
Yes.
them
Yes.
wholeheartedly.
Can
Yes.
you mentor people in that too? Because no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I love who our children are. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
yeah.
they don't listen to this podcast and probably never will. It's probably cringe idea to them, and so I relax that down. But yeah, their families are going to look different from ours, and I'm trying to celebrate that. That's God's
Yep.
creativity.
Yep.
Yes.
That's there was one of our children said, "Hey, you did raise us to think for ourselves, right? Did you not think we were going to actually do it?" I'm like, "Well, kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
think for yourself as long as it looks like me," was sort of what was
Right.
underlying it.
That was our youngest. And they came home from, I think it was ninth grade. And I was sitting in my little office and they were like, Mom, I've been thinking about this on the walk home. You
Aw.
taught us how to think. And that's really good, Mom. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I needed encouragement.
Right.
She was like,
Yeah.
and I know it's hard because we do think. And we don't think everything you want us to think. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can honor that. I think I can love that. I was thinking too, so, a lot of times what I get asked as I counsel children or their parents is what's a good family devotion? Like maybe I should be having more devotions. And as a young homeschool mom, it was all about discipling my kids, which I bless, and doing devotions. And so we were up in Boston last weekend with our oldest daughter and her roommate. And I brought something up about this particular family devotional. And her friend, her roommate, who just finished a master's in religion, was like,
Wow.
"Oh my gosh, I hated family devotionals." And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, the one that stands out to me lately is I was reading the story of Abraham and Isaac going up to the mountain, and Abraham was being asked to sacrifice him. And our kids are loquacious. Well, two of them. The other one is equally smart, but does not feel the need to interject herself. So the others are like, they've got questions and commentary galore. So I'm reading, and all the comments and questions are flying. And I'm like, stop, I'm reading the Bible, I'm reading the Bible. And so, because I needed to get through to the point. And the
Yes.
point that day was we need to have so much faith because look what God will do. And so the youngest, Ellis, said, wait a minute, when I finally let them speak. Wait a minute. Did you just read that God told this dad to kill his son? And I'm like, well, I think that's what I read, but did you hear the ending? And she's like, that is crazy. And more of this discipleship would have come, I believe firmly, if I had let that question linger, because now those are the comments and clarifying questions and conversations we have as a family. Like,
Mm,
I do believe God is big enough that it is not lost on him that this was a pretty crazy ask of Abraham. And that
yes.
Isaac probably had trauma from that moment on.
Yes.
Okay.
I
So,
can
like,
picture Isaac in a story group later, if there had been such a thing, going,
Right.
so how did you set the scene for us?
Yeah.
What was it like going up that mountain? Did you see the knife? Were you aware? How
right.
much fear did your body feel?
And what kind of a
Right.
father did he become? And so I think again, so much of it is, do I, as their mother, does Chris, as their father, believe that God is big enough to wrestle with? And that
Mm.
there is not a singular point I have to lead them to, but rather to the bigness of Him and the lavishness of His grace and compassion.
Ooh.
And so I think I'm
Amen.
a lot more in that vein. And so, yeah, what do you think?
I think that's fabulous. Yeah, I think that would have relieved so much pressure to
Yeah.
just that whole idea. God is bigger, and this is crazy.
Yeah.
And, if you ever hear a voice telling you to
Right.
kill your child, don't listen to
That's
it.
right.
Like,
Right.
come on.
So what? So mom, what if I
Right.
just told me to take my father up? Yeah, like wait a minute. We would say, hold on.
That's
Slow
when we
down.
say we're all going to the hospital now. So it's Lucy. Right. Like, right. And so, yeah, and I do have compassion on that young mother that I was. I wanted
Mhm.
so much for my children.
You were showing up and giving connection. You were having your own renaissance of learning.
Yeah.
Because you've often spoken of that's when you really learn to love learning for learning's sake, by
Yes.
learning with.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that part did take hold. That's where the learning to think and learning to
And
process stuff.
I think I was learning too that I had those same questions about God.
Yes.
Mm.
I was too afraid to ask them because I didn't
Yes.
want to not belong in the community that meant so much to me. And
Yes.
so I also was afraid I was just so obviously wrong that I needed to just stamp belief on. And it's not that I don't believe, I'm a deep lover of Jesus, but I feel it's healthy to have questions.
I want to see if we can spend some time talking about the marriage book, in particular, Deep
Okay.
Rooted Marriage.
Uh-huh.
And specifically, I'm curious to know, what was it like to write with Dan? Like, this is the first book where your voices are in there. I know you and Lisa wrote those sort of separate sections, but you all are conceptualizing this together, choosing what stories
Yes.
to tell. How was that process different? What was it like, at this stage where you are now to do that?
Uh-huh. Well, I'm very thankful that Lisa and I were able to write a bit of our story. I've After having written a book of my own, it seemed so small. And
Okay.
so I don't want to sound ungrateful, but there's so much more that I
I
had
thought of
to.
that, Becky. I thought of that. Yes.
Yes.
But keep going.
And so I mean, there are the two therapists, and then that was the contract. But no, it felt f- really good. And I think how I do love the book that Dan did tell a lot of stories in his part
Sure.
about me. So that was able to be the last story. I really didn't I didn't act very well at all. And so I even think that's good because none of us can always do it right and be on the good side of an argument or something. So I was very glad to be included.
Well, that's one of the things that we found most beneficial about both you and Dan and the calls as well. You are still in process. Every
Yeah.
time we've been with you at any kind of workshop or anything, you're not telling always 10 and 20-year-old stories. You're telling last month, the
Yes.
conversation about the kitchen went like this and it didn't go well. And I can't tell you how encouraging that is,
Deep.
because there's times when we're like, we've been married for 30 years. Why have we not fixed this crap yet? Why do we still get triggered, get stuck? We now both have training. How can that possibly happen? But you all are out there modeling. Dadgummit, we're writing the book on this and we're helping other people do it. But you've got to hear this. You do not reach blissful nirvana. You do not just arrive one day and you
Which
are now
I
on
don't
me.
like very much. I want to reach blissful
I
nirvana.
think you
I
want me
know.
to reach it more than you want to
Well,
reach it
that's
too.
true.
That would be great.
Who knows?
Right. Yeah,
But
no.
speak to that dynamic a little bit in terms of how have you all grown in the ability to give each other space and to navigate two really complex trauma stories together.
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, we're in our 70s, and it's very clear to us that our time is short, shorter than it's ever been. And it's also very clear to us that the older you get, the more faculties you lose. Not only physically, but mentally. I mean, you're just not at the top of your game anymore. And so the kindness that I feel like I can offer to Dan, as well as he can offer to me, in light of being two same sinners,
Yeah.
still married together, that I'm trying to have a kinder voice, because often when I'm triggered, I don't have a kind voice at all. All that goes out the window. And I know that there are people that can say really hard things with a kind voice. So that's my desire, to grow in that way. And there's also, just at this stage of life, the older we each get, that I like the understanding that it's shorter than ever and it's better than ever. Like, this is
Mm.
better than ever. I'm amazed at the beauty outside our windows. Like,
Mm.
I am noticing, because this is so wonderful to be alive. And many
Yes.
people my age have not made it this far. So
Right.
I think that posture of, like, I'm missing Dan, at least for the recovery weeks, would
Yeah.
be that the facilitators would stay at our house and Dan and I would be in the same bed.
I
Like,
love
I
Yeah.
it.
still miss him when he's
Yes.
gone, and that yearning is good, but it's hard. It hurts.
Yes.
So there's even imagination of a new place next year where I can go as well.
Oh,
So I think there's joy. I think you
yeah.
grab the joy. You have to.
Yeah. So, as we begin to close, Dan has been clear that one of the legacies that he would like to end on is that of marriage. And I
Mm,
know that y'all are investing time in the next year training therapists in working with couples when there has been trauma at play before
mm,
the marriage, likely during the marriage. But
yes.
what are your hopes as far as where you want to lead married couples?
Hmm. Well, my hopes are that I will actually hear Jesus a bit more, that I can hear the Spirit, that I don't sit quietly and let Dan do that, that I can actually, be alongside other people as an advocate for them, also, a prayer warrior. I think I just see goodness ahead. And I didn't realize this, but the last few years he said, "Well, I always wanted to end in- on marriage." I like, "You did?" I didn't know that back in the day,
I
but
wonder if he knew
bravo.
that. Right.
I mean, yeah, like that's amazing. And I hadn't, and then maybe I wouldn't have wanted that early on in our marriage. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, no, I can't do that. Now it's just like, oh, that's really good. The more that we're together is really a good thing at this stage.
What do you want to give married couples?
I want to give them hope. I want to say, go for it. Get out what you need to have. Dan's been teaching, training counselors for like 45 years. That's 3 different schools.
Wow.
That's like, in the beginning, it was 9 months to get a degree in biblical counseling. Isn't that crazy? Every year, like, the students, and their spouses and children were like our church. They were everything to us. Now, that
Uh-huh.
wasn't sustainable, but I think what I'm wanting to say is, a beautiful couple decided to divorce. They had 4 teenagers. And later on, she said, "I wish I'd had more faith.
Mm.
Wish I had had more faith." And so I think that's what I want to end. I mean, some marriages are meant to end, but there might be a lot of marriages out there that the spouse afterwards says, "I wish I had had more faith." And so I hope that calls people forth to find another couple or find a therapist
Yeah.
or a story guide because it's a really big deal when
Yeah.
a couple decides not to stay together, and it hurts. It hurts other people for a very long time.
Yeah. And I think that it's so important that couples not feel alone because
Yes,
we also need to borrow hope by hearing, oh, you too. You have
yes,
been here even yesterday, like it
yes.
is not shameful to be where we are. That God
No,
is in the
absolutely not.
business of redemption, right? And of making things rise from ashes.
That was one of the saving graces when we did first get married and we experienced this. Two things. One, we got into a Bible study of other couples that were in law school at the same time. And there was a
Nice.
couple that had been married a couple years later. And they're like, oh, you fight? Yeah, of course you fight. Like, like, I've never seen that end well
Yeah.
because of divorce and everything.
Yeah.
And they didn't fight well at all in their family.
Yeah.
And so like you can learn to fight well. Like that was at least a beginning. That's not enough, but at
Yes.
least it was something to say, okay, we're not crazy, but
Stay
it's completely
engaged.
messed
Yeah.
up. And the other thing was there were Christian musicians that started singing more authentically a little bit at that point in time. I was more drawn to where there was some honesty and so I remember Stephen Curtis Chapman singing about echoes of careless words and slamming doors. I'm like, what? Stephen Curtis Chapman, who everybody thinks their music is great, and they have
Yes.
fights? Okay. It's not
Yes.
crazy. We're not crazy. And then it's a long journey to curiosity. Well, but why are we wired how we are? Why do we
Yes.
Yeah.
react?
Great words. Really good words. Yes, Chris. Yes.
Well, we are thankful for you, Becky. We're thankful for Dan, but we are thankful for you and the presence you bring. And, when I first started going out to Seattle, I think it was you with Heather Lukert, and y'all ran prayer times in the chapel in between
Mm,
teaching and small groups.
yes.
And you would sing, you would pray. I would go and lay under a weighted blanket on the floor and
Huh.
listen to y'all sing.
Wow.
And it was so healing for my soul just to be in proximity. And so the presence that you have brought to Dan, to the Allender Center, to the Seattle School, to the world, to couples like us is phenomenal. And we thank you for that. So we love him, but we really appreciate Becky too.
We're big fans of the package deal.
Yes.
Oh, Wendy and Chris, thank you so much. Those words mean so much to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, a pleasure.
Have a fabulous time welcoming Dan back home with your family. And we're just excited for our listeners to have had this time with you. So take good care.
And I'll say thanks for being that guinea pig in 1988
Oh, yes.
and giving
Wow.
feedback and sticking with it.
Yes.
And because I think it is some of the most phenomenal care that's out there. I have the
Yes.
fondest memories of
Mm,
my time 2 years
Yes.
ago, and I feel bonded with the people I was there with, and the team that,
wonderful.
I'll say this, Dan has democratized and used his power. So like shared it
Yes.
and is
Mm,
bringing up other
Yes.
people. And we're grateful to be the beneficiaries of that. So
Thank you.
Yes.
thank you for your influence and encouragement.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Yes.